let's take a look at our top selections.
Hi everybody, Mike Beer here with graded stakes action at Belmont Park on Saturday afternoon. Race number 9 is the Grade 3 Pennine Ridge. It's for 3-year-olds. They're going to go 9 furlongs on the inner turf course at Belmont Park. Let's take a look at this field right now. You can see there 9 horses entered. Big morning line favorite there in number 4. Hard Love. This horse is 9-5 on the line, coming off of a stakes win in his 3-year-old debut over at Aqueduct, where he handled a weaker field in this one relatively easily as a very heavy favorite in that race. This horse has run well in all 3 of his career starts so far. This is a pretty significant step up in class for him. He's facing, in this spot on Saturday, he's facing the best field that he's ever faced in his life so far. This horse could be pretty good, and he could be forward in this race. He's got a pretty handy running style. Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector really quickly. You can see their red bar situation according to Timeform US. They think this pace could get fast. I think that's certainly a possibility. I mean, I never really expect these turf races to be run at a fast pace in New York because for the most part, they never are. But we'll see if anybody gets aggressive in this race. They have the 2 Todd Pletcher trained colts up there on the early pace in this race. The number 5 is Sainthood. This is a horse who was last seen, being a non-factor in the Kentucky Derby at a big price. This is going to be his turf debut. He has shown speed on other surfaces. We'll see how he handles turf. He's got a little pedigree for it. The other Pletcher horse is the number 3, Shaftsbury. And Shaftsbury is also up close on that Timeform US pace projector. This horse has pretty good tactical speed. He sat off of a pretty fast pace last time when he broke his maiden in his first start here at Belmont Park. So we'll see if he can take another step forward here and be competitive with a tougher group of horses. It'll be interesting to see where Hard Love is early. He is, again, the morning line favorite. He's a very handy horse. He doesn't, he hasn't shown blazing speed in any of his 3 starts so far, but he's been up close in all 3 of those races. So he feels like that's kind of how he wants to be positioned in his races. We'll see if the pace works against him at all in this spot as he tries 9 furlongs for the first time. Let's start off. We'll just run down this field real quickly. I think the horse on the rail, Shoddy is a horse that you could sort of go either way on. He won his career debut as a 2-year-old up at Saratoga. I thought he ran well that day. He got a really good trip overall. The pace of that race was solid. He got himself into position. A big hole opened up for him in the stretch, and he drove through, and he prevailed. I thought that was a pretty good effort with a good trip, and he hasn't won since then. His other 3 starts as a 2-year-old last year all came in stakes races, and he wasn't that effective in any one of those races. I personally feel like when you go back and watch those races, it's not that hard to make some excuses for this horse, and I certainly don't think he ran as poorly as it may appear on paper in those races. I think this horse could be a little bit better than he looks. His first start of this year came down at Tampa in an allowance race. He was defeated by a filly that day, but a pretty good one, and a horse who wound up working out a trip after some traffic. Shoddy again. I thought he ran fine in that race to get up for second. He was wide again. Made a little bit of a run through this stretch. I didn't think that was a poor effort off the layoff. Last time, he was in that Woodhaven against Hard Love, who was 2-5, and that was not a good performance. Shoddy did not run well in the Woodhaven last time. He was on the outside all the way, just never fired. Wasn't a factor at all through this stretch and only beat 1 horse home. He's the kind of horse who, he's got to prove that he can get 9 furlongs. He's got to prove that he can take a step forward. Those things could both be concerns, but he just feels like he's going to be a price in this race. And he's a horse who I feel like it's probably too early to give up on, even off of that poor effort last time. I'd be willing to throw him in there somewhere at a pretty big price. The 2 is Step Dancer. He's a New York bred. He's already a stakes winner. He won the AWOD Stakes over yielding turf here at Belmont Park as a 2-year-old. He's run twice now as a 3-year-old. We'll see what he does in here. I will throw up the replay of his most recent start. This is his second start off the layoff. Back in with New York breds in an allowance race here. You're going to see him come up 4 wide to the top of the stretch. He's got a dead aim on this field. The horse that winds up beating him, Good Old Boy's right to his inside. You see Step Dancer gets ahead of Good Old Boy in the stretch, but he can't make his way to the lead. He gets outfought at the end. He finishes a close third. He didn't run, horribly in that race. On the other hand, if I was going to bet him in a race like this one, I'd want him to be able to beat horses like Good Old Boy and click it at the 2 horses that outfinished him to the wire there last time. They are older horses, I get it. He's back in with 3-year-olds here, and he is a prior stakes winner. Personally, I feel like when he won those 2 races as a 2-year-old last year, he got perfect trips both times and maybe took advantage a little. I don't think he's impossible in here. He's also not a horse that I really wanted to be betting any real money on. The 3 is Shaftsbury, one of the Pletcher 3-year-old colts. we'll see what happens with him. I'm not a big fan of this horse. He ran second in each of his first 2 turf routes down at Gulfstream over the winter. He ran fine in those races, but he didn't have any excuse either time. He came back. He did break his maiden up here in his first New York start. We'll take a look at the replay right now. This horse got a great trip in this race. The pace was solid. They were moving right along early in the race. He sat off it. He got first run on the closers in there. He was never threatened through the stretch. At the end of the day, he was just much the best, and he did earn a new Beyer speed figure top in the race of 84. He ran fine in there. I'm not sure how good of a maiden field that was, actually. And this is a significant step up in class for this horse, who 2 starts back, he was beaten by a Belmont first-time starter named Colton's Command. Colton's Command came up here off of that win and ran in a pretty strong allowance race, a race that both the 7 and the 8 in this race, Public Sector and Safe Conduct, are coming out of. And Colton's Command was no match for those horses in that race. So it feels to me like Shaftsbury, even though he has improved, probably has to improve again. You'll notice that Irad Ortiz sticks here to stay with Shaftsbury, and he gets off Public Sector, I guess, to ride this horse. I suppose you could look at that as a good sign. I look at it as probably a negative, because it just means this horse is going to take more money, and I would never take a short price on Shaftsbury. And here, the 4 is Hard Love. He's probably the horse to beat in here. I don't really have anything positive or negative to say about him. He's certainly a talented horse. We'll take a look at his most recent start. This is his first start as a 3-year-old in the Woodhaven. Again, he's 2-5 in here. It's not a very strong field. He got the trip that he wanted in this race. He went forward from the start. He let another horse take over in the backstretch and just set a perfect tracking trip. Drove that horse down through the stretch, as you can see there, and it's down towards the inside. His Original, who he let have the lead. He's too good for that horse in the final furlong. He takes over. He's clear to the wire. Another good performance from this horse. In a lot of ways, he is the horse to beat. I'd be surprised if the 9 furlong distance of this race, which again, he's never been before, I'd be surprised if that got him beat. And I just really appreciate the fact that he's a tactical horse, because getting forward position early in these 9 furlong turf races on the inner turf at Belmont, it's very important. You got to get into position early. You just don't want to get caught on the outside early in these races. You want to get a good position, and it feels like Hard Love can get one of those. I think he's a major player in here, and he is the horse to beat. The 5 is Saint Hood, the other Pletcher horse. We'll see what happens. He's certainly run well in all of his starts, save the Derby, I guess. I mean, it's just a race that the Derby felt like a race he probably just had no chance to win. They took a shot in there. He wasn't close to good enough. He ran well 2 starts back down at Turfway Park when they switched him to synthetic. It's a race you could argue that he might have been best in. He got sort of forced over behind the leaders in the stretch as the winner got to jump on him, and then he came with a good late finish, but it was too late and he couldn't get up. He ran well in that race. He ran well in his prior 2 dirt starts. He sort of has that feeling of a horse who probably will handle any kind of a surface. So as he switches to turf for the first time, maybe it won't be that big a concern. I do think that he's going to have to improve off of what he's done so far to beat this field. He could show speed. He could get the right trip in here. Maybe he just fits really well in this field. We'll see what kind of price he goes off at. He's another horse in this race who I just wouldn't be that interested in at anything like his 4-1 morning line. We'll see if he drifts off of that. The 6 is Minuteman. He's a maiden on the way into this race. Minuteman's, okay, and he's a horse who certainly has the pedigree to appreciate going longer distances. They stretched him out for the first time on dirt 2 starts back. He was no match in that race after being put on the lead. The horse that beat him, Dynamic One, was an also ran in the Kentucky Derby at a big price. This horse switched to turf last time. This is the surface he's bred for. He was in that Hard Love race. He didn't run terribly, but overall he got a pretty good trip, saving ground all the way, and he was never a real factor in the race. He's a horse who clearly has to take a huge step forward here, and he's a maiden. If you like him, he's going to be a huge price in this race. Maybe he'll get forward as well. The 7 and the 8 are 2 very interesting horses in this race. Public Sector is the 7. Safe Conduct is the 8. We'll throw up the replay right now of the most recent race that they both come out of, because Safe Conduct wins it as the longest shot on the board. He pays almost $80 in here. But Safe Conduct ran really well in this race, as did Public Sector. I think these are 2 major players in this Pennine Ridge. Safe Conduct's got a great ride, I thought, from Jose Lescano. He was very aggressive early in the race to get this horse forward. He got a perfect trip sitting up close to the pace, and you could just see there in the stretch. He traveled very strongly, taking the race over, opened up a clear lead, never gave the closers a chance. He ran really well in that race. It was a big step forward, but he's now 2 for 3 on turf. The only time that he lost at Gulfstream off the layoff 2 starts back, a race where he got bumped at the start. The winner beat him to the lead and wired the field. He didn't run poorly, but he didn't run great, and he obviously took a big step forward last time Safe Conduct did. I think this horse could be dangerous. Obviously, you're not getting anything like the 38-1 this time, but he's still going to be, I think, a fair price in this race, and I could use that horse. Public Sector, on the other hand, is a horse I feel like maybe you could give another chance to. We'll see what kind of price he winds up. The morning line has him at a very fair price, and one that I would probably take. This horse was Really impressive when he won his career debut at Saratoga as a 2-year-old. Switched out to the clear in the stretch. He still had some work to do. He charged through the stretch, though, with a really good finish. I thought that was an impressive win. I thought he was pace compromised in the Pilgrim in his second career start. We wound up second to Fire at Will, who, of course, came back to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. This horse did run in the Breeders' Cup also. A little bit of early traffic in there, and then he just didn't fire. It wasn't a great performance, not one that I'm that concerned about at this point. He came off the layoff in that race that we just watched. I thought he ran well again. Over on the inside, sort of radiant off the pace early. He got out to the clear in the stretch. I thought he finished very gamely in the stretch to get up for second. He just had no chance to get the safe conduct. I think this horse is going to get the 9 furlongs. I think there's a lot to like about him. I'm expecting him to take a step forward in here. The Reds is the final horse in the race, the number 9, the Reds. He's going to make his turf debut in here. He's got some turf pedigree. He doesn't have a ton of turf pedigree. I feel like he is a horse who's going to have to improve again if he's going to be competitive in here as he switches surfaces. I guess it could be a positive. He's won twice, including that Tessio last time at Pimlico on the dirt. He's won twice on the dirt, and both of those races were at 9 furlongs. So I guess that's a positive. The distance is no problem for him, but this isn't an easy spot to switch surfaces, so I'll watch one with the Reds. I'm a fan of that horse on the dirt. I don't want to bet him in this race. We'll put the picks up there now. I like Public Sector in this race. I'm going to give him a chance in here. I'm not way against Safe Conduct, the horse that just beat him. I have him 4th, mostly just because he's not going to be quite as good a price in this race. I put the favorite 2nd. I think he's the horse to beat. But I think he also still has some things to prove, and this is the toughest race of his career. So I'm going to take Public Sector in here. I hope I get anything like that morning line price that David Aragona has him at. I'll take Public Sector on top 7-4-1-8 for me in the Pennine Ridge. It's race number 9, Belmont Park. Post time a little bit after 5 on Saturday afternoon. Good luck.